Alright, wrestling fans, you got the show. Bill Schuyler here at One Wrestling WWE NXT Review. This is a new monumental night in professional wrestling. That's right, this is being known all week as the Wednesday Night Wars, as pro wrestling is airing all over the place. We have NXT at 8 p.m. on the WWE Network. We have Ring of Honor debuting on Destination America at 8 to 9. We have that followed up by TNA Wrestling from 9 to 11, and Lucha Underground on the El Rey Network at 8 to 9 as well. I, for this particular week, am going to be doing the WWE NXT review, followed by, in the same video, the Ringside Ring of Honor review that starting next week will be on its own separate video. So, again, let's get down to it. Let's kick off them shoes. Let's crack ourselves a cold one. Get in that comfy chair and talk about wrestling, because we got a lot of wrestling to talk about tonight. We are at Full Sail University in Orlando, Florida. We opened up with a video montage of Kevin Owens, the NXT champion, and John Cena, the US champion, as Kevin Owens had done something that has not been done in ages. Kevin Owens, on his debut match in the WWE, pinned John Cena cleanly in the middle of the ring at the Elimination Chamber. That's correct, the NXT champion defeated the US champion cleanly in the center of the ring. This was a non-title match. This was about man on man and who was going to be the better of the two. Kevin Owens picked the fight with John Cena, and Kevin Owens finished that fight. We then had the announcement that Kevin Owens has signed a full-time contract for the main roster. He'll be working NXT and the main roster for the next few months until they work it out in a storyline that will be credible and worth your time, my time, and especially the careers of all those involved. As NXT kicked off tonight itself, the opening match, we had Tyler Breeze going up against Adam Rose, sans any rosebuds. Rose appears to be in NXT to recreate his persona, as the crowd cheered incessantly that they wanted Kruger, that being Leo Kruger, his original character in NXT that was changed by WWE Creative when he went to the main roster. A character that never quite went over and was a detriment to Rose's career, as he is one of the best wrestlers on the roster. And that was apparent as him and Tyler Breeze took it back and forth amongst themselves in this. This was a great opener to NXT. Both men trying to prove who was the better man. This also was due to the fact of Tyler Breeze walking out on their tag team match prior. And make no mistake, again, as I said, Adam Rose / Leo Kruger is a fantastic wrestler. The great ring psychology put forth by both men and the announcers, making it clear that the rosebuds in the previous character are out the door and done. The match ended with a beauty shot as Tyler Breeze got the 1-2-3 over Adam Rose. We then got an interview backstage with Solomon Crow, and he seems to be all worked up about Kevin Owens and Samoa Joe, and he says he'll take care of it when he gets back. That ended the interview. get back from where? Crow was already on the main NXT roster. He certainly was not injured as far as anything is out there to say. Where is Crow going? I'm sure we will find out in weeks to come. We then had Eva Marie brought out and being announced to a hostile crowd with chants of "you can't wrestle, you can't wrestle." This crowd would not let this woman get a word in edgewise. She finally was able to speak and say about how talented the women's division was here in NXT. Superior. And that she wanted to come down to NXT to wrestle with these better wrestlers. Basically saying that the divas on the main roster were not up to snuff, and that the NXT women's wrestlers, as we all know, are head and shoulders above the divas division up on Raw and SmackDown. We then had what was an announcement that Kevin Owens, starting tomorrow night on SmackDown, would be having the Kevin Owens NXT Open Challenge, mocking John Cena's U.S. title Open Challenge, and leading the question to be is, who's going to come after his title? This is an open challenge, obviously, to anyone in the locker room. So anyone from SmackDown, at any level, from a Dolph Ziggler to a Brock Lesnar, I mean, anybody that's backstage can decide they want to come out and take him up on this challenge. This should be quite interesting and something to make me want to watch SmackDown, which is a show I have not watched literally in years, not since one Paul Heyman ceased being the writer of SmackDown. That's how long it's been. We then got another announcement. GM Regal, William Regal, came out to announce that on July 4th, NXT will be in Tokyo, Japan, along with the WWE's traveling roster consisting of, at this time, John Cena, Brock Lesnar, Chris Jericho, Neville, Paige, and the Lucha Dragons. And that the NXT champion Kevin Owens will be going up and defending his title against one Finn Balor. Finn Balor making his return to Japan, the place where he cultivated and became the megastar and the superior athlete that he is today. This, again, should be quite interesting. This will air live on the network. Time seems to be at 6:30 p.m. Eastern Time. We'll hear more about this, and I'll get more to you as they give more information. But again, this is quite an event. The WWE does not travel to Japan, and this is the first time they're airing something from Japan. I can't remember the last time. And it appears, unfortunately, I don't believe there'll be any Japanese talent coming from either New Japan or any other or Japanese promotion to wrestle with the WWE wrestlers. And the word is that Hideo Itami should be ready to wrestle and also make his return to Japan. Now, originally, Chris Jericho had been set up to challenge and wrestle Finn Balor on the 4th of July. That information was made and announced on Jericho's podcast, Talk is Jericho, when he had Finn Balor on a few weeks ago. Obviously, that has changed, so the question now will be who Chris Jericho is going to go up against. But I digress. This is not all NXT involved, but it's information that I felt was pertinent to wrestling fans out there. We now have our match, women's match of Carmella coming out to the ring with Enzo and Cass, going up against Alexa Bliss with her men, Team Bam, Murph and Blake and Murphy. A little bit of a mind slip there. In her corner, Carmella jumped on Bliss from the beginning, punching the living daylights out of her. Basically got on top of her and just started pounding on her MMA style. She was able to get her bearings back and switch up, and they went back and forth through here. Carmella actually holding Alexa down for a pin, which she kicked out of. They would continue to go back and forth, and then Alexa Bliss just took it to Carmella, and Carmella never gained control again. She rolled her up for the pin, having her arm on the rope, the referee missing it, and got the 1-2-3 pin and sent her back to the garbage, as she stated last week, that she was used to being from in New Jersey. This is going to be an ongoing feud between Carmella and Alexis, along with Team Bam and Enzo and Cass. Hopefully this ends up with Enzo and Cass winning the NXT Tag Team belts. Something that you can't teach that. We then had a backstage interview with the Man Beast Rhino, saying that the battle he had with Corbin was a good battle. He was an honorable and a great opponent, but he is now focusing on Finn Balor. This being, actually, I did not announce it earlier, the main event tonight is the Man Beast Rhino versus the #1 contender to the NXT title, Finn Balor. He says the demon and all the mind games and the smoke and the mirrors do not fool him or mess with his mind in any way, and he is better than him, and it'll be one gore, and he will be one step closer to the NXT title. We then had a returning Marcus Lewis, or Luis, however we want to say it. Used to be with Sylvester LaFour. He did not need to return. This man is, in my opinion, the absolute worst wrestler that is on the current television NXT roster. This character has not improved one bit. He is still bald, making ridiculous faces, and cannot wrestle a lick in the ring. He was tag teamed up with Jason Jordan. They were going up against the returning Vaudevillians, another team that I'm very not much into, and this is primarily their gimmick and their look. As you know or don't know, they're made up to look like 1920-ish, 1930 circus strongmen and performers. I don't like the gimmick. I don't see the gimmick going over on the main roster, and I think they should scrap that now. I thought they were going to debut with a new look. Unfortunately, we did not get that. In the ring, they're still so-so. I don't have a big... I don't expect to see much for them. I have a feeling these are going to be one of the teams that are going to remain in NXT and not make that trip to the main roster. Or they will become enhancement talent no matter where they go. They did win the match via the Whirling Dervish. And this is sadly for Jason Jordan, who also is a green wrestler, but he's a great athlete and someone that I believe they take a little time in cultivating. He reminds me very much of a Shelton Benjamin's type of character, the type of athlete that he was in the very beginning. And if you remember, he was very green coming in with the Kurt Angle gimmick along with his tag team partner, and it turned into Shelton Benjamin's one of the greatest wrestlers in the business, working primarily in Japan now since leaving Ring of Honor. But I digress with that. We then had an interview with Finn Balor about his return to Japan. He reminds Owens and everyone that Japan was, again, his second home, and that he earned 11 championships while being in Japan. And he expects to basically have his 12th championship on Japanese soil, and claims that he will leave Tokyo as the NXT champion. Our main event, again, would be Finn Balor versus Rhino. Rhino came out first. Crowd being behind Rhino somewhat, but you knew that once that music hit and the entrance began, Team Balor was going to make their voices heard, and indeed they did. He came out, of course, sans the demon makeup. As you know, that's for special events and big time matches. They don't do that all the time. For those who were relatively new and maybe just saw the Super Show at Unstoppable and want to know where's the makeup, again, that's something for the major events, pay-per-views. I guarantee you in Japan he will be performing in some kind of maybe even new gimmick to really make a blast over there in Tokyo. Rhino took the early lead, overpowering Finn Balor. Both veterans would go back and forth, but neither were utilizing any of their signatures or finishers in an attempt to put one of each other out. Again, Rhino was just a true beast in this, and he was all over Finn Balor. Balor would attempt to get some offense in, but it would not last long, and Rhino would take him back down and continue to ground and pound him, slamming him around the ring and really showing him the power and strength that he had compared to Balor's more aerial and kicking style and high flying moves. And he grounded Finn Balor for the majority of this match. Balor did hit the sling blade and then hit him with a flying shotgun kick, but this did not take Rhino out. Rhino did go down. Finn went to the top to hit the coup de grace. Rhino rolled out of the way. He did not strike that, and with that, Balor wound up, as he came up to strike him with a gore, was able to spin Rhino around and pull him up and get him down for the 1, 2, 3. It was like that. It was quick. Rhino was shocked. The crowd was shocked. The match was over. Like, done. Everyone seemed very surprised about this. Finn Balor continued to make adulations to the crowd going forth. Rhino took off up the ramp, being that he had lost. As Finn Balor made it to the top of the ramp, Rhino struck out of nowhere with a gore, taking Finn Balor out. Out cold, that is. Medics came up to Balor as we faded to black. Thus was the end of this week's NXT show. Overall, this was a good show. It had a lot of talking in the show. A lot of talking. A lot of vignettes. But they had a lot of news going on about what was going down and what was coming up down the road. Important things I guess they needed to get off. And as you come off of these big Unstoppable takeover events and the like, we're going to have a little bit of a feeling out period here, as you have guys up who went to the main roster, ones who are getting ready to go. And again, you can't have all your superstars on all the time. This is an adjustment for people who are not used to what wrestling had become since the Monday Night Wars, where they threw everything and anything into a weekly television. No, Television was something that made you grow and continue to salivate and wait for these big matches to occur, whether it was a giant house show back in the day, or if it was a pay-per-view, or now if it's an NXT takeover. This is old school wrestling, make no mistake about it. It's old school wrestling with a 21st century look. And the fans apparently have taken to it, interviewing fans as they have throughout the thing. The biggest thing they're saying is thank you for bringing back pro wrestling and getting out of sports entertainment. And you can't say no more than that when you are a fan of pro wrestling, like the show is, and like all you NXT fans are. Now, at the same time this show aired, another show that goes the limit, pushes it as it will, one of the greatest indies in the business, which is now with a new deal with Destination America, along with Sinclair Broadcasting, is actually reaching the entire country now. They have, there's a legitimate argument ongoing right now, is if Ring of Honor or Impact Wrestling is the number 2 network of wrestling in the country. And of course you got Lucha Underground, also aired at 8 o'clock. I unfortunately do not have the El Rey network, and I don't have the opportunity to watch Lucha Underground. But the Ring of Honor show I DVR'd and was able to watch after I had watched Impact Wrestling. But I can't talk about anything going on in Impact because that's all about Andre_Corbeil and his Impact review here at One Wrestling. He will have that all covered for you. Everything going on, the news, the reviews, everything in between. It's going to happen. It's been happening. And it's looking to go on down the road and dealing with rumors and the like. Andre is going to take care of that for you. Right now, like I said, we're adding this in and attached to the NXT review. Next week, this will be its own video. It is Ringside Ring of Honor review from One Wrestling, and you got the show. And it's a sold-out Toronto, Ontario show up in Canada. Shouts out again to Andre Corbeil, who was up there in Canada. Toronto, I'm not sure. I don't believe that was close to him in Calgary. I don't know the layout and all that and what's about up there in Canada. But I digress. We had an opening promo by the Briscoe brothers. And it looks like Destination America's supposed worry about sponsors and Impact Wrestling not getting enough sponsors is out the window, as the Briscoes open up with profanity at the very first 20 seconds of the show. I was shocked. I didn't expect that. One other thing that they did not do for this show, and for those that have their Sinclair, that this show actually airs earlier in the week than the Destination America show. That Sinclair Broadcasting cable I do not have in this area here in the Philadelphia, New Jersey area. Of course, where Ring of Honor's from, you'd think we'd have Ring of Honor, but we don't until now. Being with that, I thought that as Destination America had made this big move, and this was already recorded, that they might have enhanced and put a little bit of verbiage in throughout the show, announcing that they were now on Destination America every Wednesday night at 8 o'clock. They did not do that. Whether they will maybe do that starting next week, we'll have to see, but I think that was something that was kind of foolish, and something that you wanted to, if you had any confused Ring of Honor fans out there or wrestling fans that stumbled upon it and were wondering why it was here and what was going on, they had the opportunity to explain all of that and to explain once again how this is a complete block of wrestling on Wednesday nights. 3 hours. WWE has 3 hours of Raw every Monday night, and it's barely watchable by any wrestling fan. 3 hours here, an hour of Ring of Honor plus 2 hours of Impact Wrestling gives me all the wrestling you could possibly need in one night. And I got NXT wrestling on top of it, and if I could get Lucha Underground, I'd have that too. But I digress. Ring of Honor, first match of the night, and this was a card that was a mix between New Japan and Ring of Honor as they were coming off of their Global Wars or War of the Worlds pay-per-view that they had up there in Toronto, Ontario. Will Ferrara, who I am not familiar with, but was apparently turned out to be a very good wrestler, and he may have some chops for down the line. He was going up against one of my favorite Japanese wrestlers in the business, a guy I pick that is, in my opinion, one of the future superstars of New Japan Pro Wrestling, one half of the Time Splitters with Alex Shelley. I'm talking about Kushida. Kushida is unreal in the ring, and Will Ferrara was going to find out what kind of wrestler Kushida really was. But again, this was a physical match. Ferrara was on the attack in the early goings, keeping the high flyer Kushida down on the mat, grounding and pounding Kushida till eventually he was able to kick out. And he got to the outside apron and grabbed a hold of his arm, that being Ferrara's, and dropped to the floor, wrenching the living hell out of Ferrara's arm, setting him up for the submission that he's well known for. This, of course, Ferrara did a fantastic through the ropes DDT, very similar to Sami Zayn's move. Hitting Kushida with that DDT right to the floor. Ferrara basically had dominated the match up until this point, and then they got some strong style punches going on. They were just going at it, hitting each other back and forth, back and forth. And we then, Ferrara wound up going down to the ground. We had a great moonsault by Kushida, and a 1-2, and he kicked out. Unreal kick out, unexpected by the crowd. Kushida, and I think Ferrara. The crowd was solidly behind Kushida, and a crosshair exchange found Kushida on top with Ferrara and an arm submission hold that he continued to twist around until he finally had it the way he wanted it, and he cranked that arm, and Will Ferrara had to tap out. Your winner, Kushida, via submission. A great opener to this Ring of Honor match of the evening, the card. I'm hooked already. If their television product is looking like this now, I see big success for them. I haven't really watched Ring of Honor television in years, and this is vastly different than how it used to be. Looks like they've gotten some more production values put in, some more lights, some better camera work, sound, the whole deal. Biggest thing I think they need to work in is storylines, promos, and slow it down a bit, and they'll be right on top. But that's a story, as I say, for another day. We then had The Addiction, formerly Bad Influence from TNA. We're talking Frankie Kazarian and Christopher Daniels, the Ring of Honor World Tag Team Champions of the world. And they hijacked the commentary table and laid out a challenge and talked down and berated ReDRagon, calling them that entitlement generation who feel they deserve to have everything just given to them without working for it. Well, Kaz and Daniel said they worked for everything they've ever had, including these titles. And they're going to give them their shot next week, and next week only. So the champs are saying that next Wednesday night at 8 o'clock, we're going to have a tag team title match. That's a Ring of Honor World Tag Team title match of the world. And at that point, they told Kevin Kelly and King Carino they had their permission to worship them. Nothing like the Addiction, Kaz, and Christopher Daniels are the best workers in the business, whether it's on the mic, whether it's in the ring. It doesn't matter. Vignettes, shooting from the hip. These guys are the best. TNA really dropped the ball on these guys. They should have had the world titles, and they should have had them for the longest haul in TNA. They were the most over tag team. And I know I'm ranting, and this is Ring of Honor, but it's a damn problem I had with them in TNA. And you know what? I was happy when they finally left and went to Ring of Honor because they got the respect they deserved. Same way I felt about the Young Bucks when they were stuck with a stupid gimmick, a Generation Me, and all the garbage they put in with them, and they super kick partied their way to stardom with a little bit of a gesture there to TNA, and that's a team that will never ever go back to TNA. And I don't think you'll see these two guys ever make that journey back, as they are living the life. They are superstars, and they're being treated as such. And I can't say any more about the Addiction, except that I can't wait to see them go up against ReDRagon next week, because ReDRagon is one of my favorite tag teams in the world as well. Because God knows Ring of Honor has most of the greatest tag teams going right now between them and New Japan Pro Wrestling. I digress. We then had a guy who I have grown to like a lot, the last real man, Silas Young, representing Ring of Honor, going up against Watanabe from New Japan Pro Wrestling. These are two brawlers, two old school, let's go in the ring and see who can knock each other's block off first. Silas has that whole look and demeanor. He reminds me of Rick Rude. It might be the mustache, but it's also that attitude that he has. He's just got that it factor, and I like it a lot. Watanabe I have seen 4 or 5 times here in the Americas in the past year, and he is quite the wrestler. These two punished each other throughout this match, just strong style, beating the snot out of each other in and out of the ring. And then Silas finished the match with a airplane spin and then like a neck drop off of it, and he put Watanabe out for the 1, 2, 3, and that match was over. And it was a hellacious match, and it was entertaining as all get out. So far, nothing here has had me want to take a break and walk away from the television. We then had a third match of the night, which was former NFL competitor Moose with his manager Veda Scott going up against the Decade, or whatever they're going by now, but it was BJ Whitmer and his team. He had 2 guys with him, one of them being King Carino's young son, who's been brought in by the dastardly BJ Whitmer and being trained by him instead of his father. He's 18 years old, and he's probably 150 pounds dripping wet. He's got no build to him whatsoever. He's a kid, yet he is a young boy for them. They're treating him like a Japanese style. And I think it's, I don't know who the other guy's name is that's with them yet. I digress. I'll get to learn these Ring of Honor guys now as I'm watching every week. They tell him that you're going up against Colby Corino. Corino, you're ready. You're ready to go. His father on the announcing table saying that you cannot let this match go on. There's no way, Gino, you got to stop this. This guy is not ready for someone like Moose. Didn't matter. The bell rang. The crowd is cheering. Moose is going to kill you. Moose tossed this kid outside the ring and then just grabbed a hold of him and kept swinging him and smashing him up against the Ring of Honor rail sides like Rey Mysterio used to get swung around by Kevin Nash. And this kid's just getting banged left and right along the aluminum side there. And then Moose picks him up and power bombed him on the ring apron. Yeah, just like Kevin Owens power bombed him. But this guy's a lot bigger, and this kid's a lot smaller than anybody that Kevin Owens has done this to. He then picks him up and throws him into the ropes. The same way, powerbomb to the ropes, bouncing him off and knocking him down to the floor. He then, under the direction of his manager, Veda Scott, picks him up and power bombs him right onto the mats over the concrete as his father looked on. How much longer until we get King Corino back in the ring one last time to go up against BJ Whitmer? I cannot see that that's not what they're building to here. And putting this, this reminds me of, if you recall back in the day in WCW when David Flair was taken up and fooled and caroused with women and desire that his father never treated him right. He was never there for him, and that whole app thing. And I think that's what they're doing here with Corino. And then they'll just toss this kid to the side when they're done with him. We had an outside vignette as TV champion Jay Lethal and Truth Martini had arrived to the arena. Jay concerned about facing. He goes, "Yo, bro, I'm facing both Briscoe brothers tonight." And then his manager, Truth Martini, tells you don't have to worry about that. I got it covered. You're not facing anybody and giving them a preview to the best in the world pay-per-view. Ha ha ha. What is? You got a Truth Martini. You're either going to love him or hate him, but either way, you can still watch him. He's one of the few managers left in the business. I'll take him. They need more managers in pro wrestling. Hear that? Anybody listening to WWE NXT? You need more managers. Develop them. Get them out there. Grow them down there for the guys that came in that maybe aren't going to make it in the ring, but they damn sure could be entertaining as one of your wrestlers, your tag teams. Maybe the guy's got the gift of the gab, but he just doesn't have the ring smarts. Let him be the manager and be surprised what you get out of it. Don't worry about what Vince saying that managers were a thing of the past. They're not. And one Paul Heyman has proved that without a doubt. And Truth Martini's been proving it down here in Ring of Honor for quite some time. But we then had, let's see what we have here. The main event, the House of Truth with Truth Martini. That's Donovan Dijak and Jay Diesel going up against Jay and Mark Briscoe as Jay Lethal came out to the ring with the House of Truth, but in street clothes, and joined the announce table, being on commentary for this match. Hard-hitting action as only dem boys can do. The Briscoes took it out and just beat the living hell out of everybody. It's always like a car wreck when the Briscoes are in the ring with anybody. But this one kid, this Donovan Dijak, is apparently was a Golden Gloves champion, and he starts boxing with Mark, and Mark tags out to Jay, bringing in the Ring of Honor champion Jay Briscoe, and he took control of in a hard brawling style, coming in and giving Yakuza kicks to everybody. Everybody called a boot in the face, and he just went around the ring clearing it and all that from a beautiful, just from a hot tag. It was an awesome spot in the match, and Diesel from the House of Truth got taken out via the Doomsday device. For those of you who don't follow Ring of Honor, if you know who the Road Warriors were, then you know the Doomsday device was their finisher, where they put the opponent up on the shoulders and the other guy comes off the top rope, taking him out and putting him down for the 1, 2, 3. But we had, of course, that 1, 2, 3, and after the match, Jay Briscoe was going to give a Jay Driller to Diesel, and Jay Lethal left the table and ran in to save his partner in the House of Truth, and Jay Briscoe got a hold of him and hit the TV champion with the Jay Driller, leaving him laying out on the ring. And they had one last plug for the pay-per-view upcoming for Best in the World, and you gotta wonder, is the greatest champion of all time, the greatest championship title, the TV title, as Jay Lethal says, because he defends it every week, or is it Jay Briscoe's world title? The two of them are going to clash, and it's going to be title versus title. I don't know what to call on that. I, as a Jay Lethal fan, really would like to see Jay Lethal take the whole kit in caboodle and be the Ring of Honor World Heavyweight Champion and the TV title holder. And Jay Briscoe can go back to the chicken coop along with his Planet of the Apes looking brother Mark. Yeah, I said it. Them two redneck sumbitches are just too grimy for pro wrestling and television. I don't care how badass they are and what they seem to do. I am not a Briscoe fan. I'm glad to see anybody and everybody take it to them boys when they get it. And with that, I am the show. You can follow me on Twitter at YouGotTheShow. Andre_Corbeil. Big Ray at Big Ray's Show at One Wrestling's The Can-Am Wrestling Show. I also got a little segment on there called Back in the Day. My partner, tag teaming, Hustle and Show Goes Old School, coming at you this upcoming week. That's Billy Ray Hustle, Billy Ray Valentine on Twitter. He's also part of the PW Hustle. That's an outlaw podcast, if you will, with 8-Track Brown and Professor Quintana. Professor Quintana, who may be joining us here and there on the old school ride, as the professor's mind, along with my knowledge of pro wrestling. I don't think there's nothing that can get by the two of us at all. Homage, as always, to Bill Apter at Apter One Wrestling. Follow him there at the Apter Chat on YouTube for all the greatest interviews, news, upcoming. Bill Apter is an icon in the business, and if you don't know who Bill Apter is, son, you need to get into wrestling and find out a little bit of old school and who helped build up this business, and Bill Apter is one of those men. With that, as I said, next week these will be two separate shows. The Ring of Honor review I will do on its own. The NXT review will have its own separate one. Both shows will go on and be dropped on the same day, so you'll have 2 great entertaining interviews by the show Bill Schuyler. That's right. I'm going to lay it on the line, telling you all about NXT and Ring of Honor and all the news that seems to be breaking out. Every day something new is popping in professional wrestling right now. It's one of the most exciting times in pro wrestling in well over a decade and a half. And I don't know, other than that, I don't think I got much more to say except I'll see you down the road.